Hey guys, it's Kesara, and today I'm gonna be doing my holiday book haul. So this might just be the best book haul that I've done pretty much all year. Not just because like about 70% in this book haul are gonna be fantasy. That's not all. Like I feel like I have two like horror thriller novels, a few sci-fi, and then the rest of the books are fantasy. And there is a lot of them, so this is gonna be a long one, guys. But it is so worth it. Every single book on this haul, I'm really excited to read or have already read and absolutely love. And unlike most of my other hauls where like the majority of the books are like discount books or bargain books, a lot of the books on this haul are new releases and a lot of them were really expensive. So it's not only the best book haul I've done every year, it's probably the most expensive book haul I've done all year long, but I don't regret it in the slightest. So before we get into the majority of the books that I'm gonna be reading, I wanna start this off with my Book of the Month subscription for November and December. So for November, I kind of went a little bit in left field, at least for me. Decided to get These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So this is an Asian-inspired Romeo and Juliet retelling, from what I understand, which I don't love Romeo and Juliet as a romance, at least. I like it as a tragedy. Let's go with tragedy. And YA is not always my favorite, but I like Asian-inspired novels, and this one seemed to be really popular, so I'm excited to get to it. I had actually planned to read this before now, but I didn't get around to it because November and December are not great reading months for me, which is weird because normally they're like some of my best reading months. But either way, I'm definitely excited to get to this very soon. Then in the month of December, I finally became a BFF, so I got this gorgeous tote, which I didn't expect to like this. I honestly thought I wouldn't like it, but I actually really like it, like a lot, which surprises me, but makes me also really happy. And inside the tote, they didn't come inside the tote. I put them inside the tote. I got my books for December. The first one, which was my December pick, is People Like Her by Ellery Lloyd. So this is a story about an Instagram star who is like an Instagram mom who has adoring fans, and it's a horror novel. So that's all I know about it, but when I saw that, I was just like, this actually makes me really intrigued to read it. This is the one that just really caught my eye the most. It's a debut novel, so obviously I haven't read anything by this author before, but it seems like a really interesting concept, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm hoping that I'll end up loving it, but I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical about these books, and for me, sometimes they're just like so good, out of this world, like I didn't expect it, but I'm so happy I bought this book, and then sometimes they're kind of meh. I feel like for me, Book of the Month is when I kind of read out like outside of my comfort zone, so this I think is a perfect example of that, and I'm excited for it. And apparently towards the end of the year, I'm really into the YA fantasy picks because I decided to get Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. So this book, I actually saw Ashley from Bookish Realm recommended it, and it made me really excited because I haven't read a lot of YA fantasies this year. But this one, so many people seem to love, and it seemed really hyped up, and I want to see what all the hype is about. I did pick up the audiobook a couple of weeks ago, and I did not love the audiobook, and it kind of turned me off from the book a little bit, but I liked the idea that I was getting from it. I just didn't love the execution of the audiobook. So because of that, I was just kind of like, you know what? I kind of want to read the physical book. This was one of the like the new books added to the Book of the Month library in the month of December. Even though it wasn't one of the 5 picks, they add some new books in addition to those 5 picks that you can do as add-ons. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I'm getting an add-on this month. I'm really excited for this. This is probably, if I'm gonna read one of these 3 in the month of December, this would be the one that I'll end up picking up. It's gorgeous. I love the colors on the book, and I'm hoping that I'll end up loving the book itself. But I've heard really good things, so it could potentially be a new favorite of mine. So the first book I have is gonna be a horror novel, then I'm gonna do a bit of sci-fi, and then all of the rest of the books are fantasy. So we're gonna start with the horror novel, and that is White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. I honestly don't know very much about this, but when I was researching books for my October month, this month for October, I wasn't going like straight up horror. I was trying to go for more like subtle horror that has like good, beautiful writing. This is one of the books that kept popping up in my research. So I was just like, I kind of want to read it, but my library didn't have a copy of it. So I decided to get it, and I never got to it in the month of October because it came afterwards, obviously, but I'm excited to have it, and hopefully I can get to it sometime next year. And I'm hoping that I'll end up loving this one. I don't know anything about it other than it's like slightly horror, but not like too scary, more like creepy sort of horror, which makes me excited for it. So now we're gonna move on to the sci-fi books that I decided to pick up. Most of these books are books that I was planning to read in September or wanted to read in September and just never got around to, probably because I didn't have a physical copy of. When I have books that are like on my radar that I want to read, I look for them in places where I can get discounted books. And then when I see them, I pick them up. So these are all books that I got discounted that have been on my radar that I really, really want to read. The first one is Do You Dream of Terror 2 by Tammy O. So this one, I believe, is about an Earth-like planet that humans are traveling to. I'm fascinated by Earth-like planets. I think it's really cool that NASA is looking for like planets like this. There are tons of YouTube videos on that, so check that out if you don't know what I'm talking about. And I haven't seen another series that is actually about a team going to an Earth-like planet, like to create a second Earth. And I just feel like it's near future enough that possible, but at the same time, it would be interesting to live in this type of era. So I don't know, I'm really excited for this. Hopefully I'll end up loving this. Definitely not gonna get to it till at least sometime next year, but I'm really excited to have a copy. So the next one is a classic sci-fi, and that's 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. I actually don't know what this book is about, and I kind of don't want to know. I feel like this is the type of book that everyone's already been spoiled for, but I haven't been. I'm gonna get to it probably sometime soon, like early next year, and hopefully I'll end up loving it. I'm very hit or miss with classic sci-fi though, because some classic sci-fi I think is just really cool, and then some very problematic. I think with most classic books, there are problematic elements, but I feel like sci-fi in particular has some problematic elements that I particularly cannot read. So I don't know if this one will be like that or not. I'm hoping that it's not, and I'm hoping that I'll end up loving it. So the next one we have is Contact by Carl Sagan. I don't know what this book is about, but I just think it's so cool that it's written by a professor of astronomy and space science. I feel like it will be like very realistic, potentially. I don't know. It sounds like it'll be about extraterrestrials though. I mean, it's called Contact, so we're probably gonna make first contact by alien. Again, probably not gonna read till next year, but I'm really happy to have it. So these next three are by the same author. They're not all necessarily sci-fi. One is definitely sci-fi, one is fantasy, and then one could be either sci-fi or fantasy. And that's books by Octavia E. Butler. You guys know I found her for the first time this year, and I just absolutely love her work. So we're gonna start with Lilith's Brood. I decided to get it. I know I said I was gonna wait until the new covers come out, but I couldn't wait, and this was on sale. So this is actually 3 books in one. I really, really love this series. This is a very distant future sci-fi in which humanity has basically made itself extinct, and these aliens come and try to give humanity a second chance, except they want a give and take from humanity. So because they're reviving the race, they want to kind of be part of that revival, if that makes sense. There is a change in the way humans are chemically made up, or these new beings, maybe not completely human. It is absolutely fantastic. It is dark. It is hard to read at times, but it's very character driven and still really, really good. The world building is just fantastic. There are some of the most alien aliens that I've ever read about in this series, and I absolutely love every second of it. This is a series that I could totally see myself rereading in the near future, and I'm really excited to have a copy. And yes, I probably still will end up picking up the new covers when they come out. The next one is the bind up of the Seed to Harvest series by Octavia E. Butler. So this one I haven't read yet. Actually, I do have the first book in this series in the new covers, which is just absolutely gorgeous, by the way. But I decided to get the bind up also because it was really cheap, and I don't have the other 3 books in this one, and all of the covers aren't out yet. And I'm definitely gonna read it all at the same time because I mean, like, these books are short. They're really short, and I tend to just binge read Octavia E. Butler once I start reading her books. Even though I like the new covers a lot, I decided to get this one just so that I can have it, so I can read it now, and then when the new covers all come out, then I'll get the new covers. This one, I believe, is more on the fantasy side, and it's about demigods, which just makes me really excited. Apparently it spans like very many years, like it starts out in like ancient times and goes into the distant future, and that makes me really excited. I feel like this could be really, really interesting, and this is the next series by her that I plan on reading. Hopefully I can get to this as early as January. And lastly, I decided to get the graphic novel adaptation of Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I already have the physical book, but I haven't read the graphic novel yet, and this was on sale, so when I saw it, I was just like, Kindred is one of the first books that people will tell you to read by Octavia E. Butler because it is a historical fiction sort of time travel novel. It's about a contemporary black woman, which I think the book was written like in the 1970s, so it's a contemporary black woman from the 1970s traveling back into the antebellum South, so when slavery existed, and it is dark. It is really, really dark. It is the historical fiction that I've always been looking for, and I really loved it. It gave me something in historical fiction I had been missing for a while, and Kindred just did it so perfectly. So I'm really excited to have the graphic novel because I haven't read the graphic novel, but I've recently come to love graphic novels, and now I'm really excited to have one that I could reread really quickly rather than having to reread the whole book. It also seems really nice inside, so I'm excited to see how much I like it. I'm really excited to have this. I think there's another book that she has a graphic novel adaptation for as well. Ooh, Parable of the Sower, which right now is my favorite Octavia E. Butler book, so that might be the next one that I end up looking for. Seriously though, if you haven't read any books by Butler, you need to, because she's just completely amazing and I love her writing so much. And speaking of graphic novels, I did decide to get one more because I can't help myself apparently. I got Monstrous Book 1 by Marjorie M. Liu. First of all, this is an Asian-inspired high fantasy set in an alternate matriarchal China, which just is perfect. I absolutely love that concept, and then the illustrations in this are just absolutely stunning. Like, you can probably tell a little bit from the cover, but it's just so intricate and detailed. Like, this is the most detailed graphic novel that I have ever seen. Absolutely gorgeous. I've only read the first volume, so the first 6 chapters or so of the book so far, but I'm really, really loving it. That's why I decided to pick up the book, because I read it as an ebook actually for my library, but after that I was just like, this is so good. I really want to pick up a physical copy of it, because I remember I kind of did the thing with the Avatar: The Last Airbender series where I read most of it as ebooks. Graphic novels were on back order. I finally got one of them in at around the time that I was planning to read the ebook version, so I just decided to read the physical copy, and it was just such a completely different experience reading the physical copy versus the ebook. So I'm just really excited to have this because I definitely plan to get to this very, very soon, and I think the next book will be coming out very soon with the next 3 volumes, so I'm really excited for that as well. And I feel like that's a good segue into fantasy. Next, we're going to talk about Telepoc: The Hunt for Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the 3rd book in the Nevermore series, which is a middle grade series that is inspired by Harry Potter, but very much its own thing, and it's following a character of Morgan Crow, who is a cursed child, which means she is supposed to die on her 11th birthday, but instead she's whisked away by Jupiter North to join the Wondrous Society. So it has kind of like this magic school setting, but it also has this kind of like magic home setting as well, because she lives in this magical hotel that like changes shape and all of that stuff on a whim, but also she has her own sort of knack, let's put it that way, because that's the way the book talks about it. I absolutely love this series. Morgan Crow, the main character, is just so precious. I love her so much, and just gives me all the nostalgic feels from when I was her age. So I absolutely love this so, so much. While I didn't love the 3rd book as much as I wanted to, it is still a fantastic series that is really, really good, and I'm so happy to have this book. Also, can't wait till the next book comes out, because I believe it was originally supposed to be a trilogy, but this one took so long because they decided to extend the series. Yeah, that makes me really happy too. So next we have Come Tumbling Down by Shauna McGuire. So this is the 5th novel in the Wayward Children series, which is about children who go to other worlds. It's kind of like a multiple worlds fantasy series because it's about children who go to these other worlds. It's about the children after they come back, and these other worlds seem like places that they're meant to be, but sometimes they're sent back. And this one is like a continuation of the main storyline, but following Jack and Jill from Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I honestly was a little bit disappointed in it. Like, I reread the first 3 books in this in order to read this one, because last year I picked up In an Absent Dream, which is one of the prequel books in this series, because there's prequels and then there's sequels. There's a different publication order, and In an Absent Dream I absolutely loved last year. It's probably my favorite in the series, so I was excited for the next one to come out, and I reread the first 3 in order to read this one. It wasn't as good as I was hoping based off of my reread for the first 3, because those were actually really good, and one of my favorites from that reread was Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which this is following the same characters, but I didn't love this one as much. I didn't get as much world building and stuff from this one as I was expecting, but it's still a fantastic series that I'm excited to continue on with as well, because her next book in the series, Among the Green Grass Sea, I believe, is coming out next year. I don't actually know what characters that one is following, but I will probably find out before I pick up that one. I'm happy to have a copy of this one as well to round out my collection. So the next one is a new release that I haven't read yet and I'm super excited for, and that's How the King of Elfame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. This is part of the Folk of the Air trilogy. This is a series of short stories set in the same world about, of course, you guessed it, Prince Cardan, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited for this. You guys have no idea. Like, it's completely irrational because I know this is not going to be as good as like how much excitement I have for it, but I'm just complete trash for the series, and like I'm just a hopeless fan at this point. I'm just excited to have this. Also, it's an illustrated edition. Like, it's a special edition of like part of the story of one of my favorite series, so like that just makes me so happy. I haven't actually flipped through it yet, and I don't plan to until I actually read it. So I feel like this is just gonna be such a great experience that I can't wait to actually get to it. I'm saving this for a rainy day in December because I know there will be a rainy day probably very soon, and I'm going to want to read this so much, so I'm really excited for it. So next we have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I honestly don't know why I bought this book. It was just a complete whim. Like, I didn't plan to pick this book up, and then I kind of just did. It was one of those situations where like I needed to round out the $35 in my Amazon cart because I needed something delivered overnight and I didn't want to pay shipping, so I just decided to pick up a book that was available for the overnight shipping to round out the $35, and this was the book that I ended up picking. I've heard really good things about it. I believe it's a very romance-fueled fantasy book, and if it's not, don't tell me, because I tend to like books like this a lot more if I go into them believing that they're romance-fueled, whether they are or not. I don't know very much about this, but I feel like this is the type of book that I need to go into somewhat blind, especially since it says on the back, perfect for fans of Sarah J Maas, which makes me think it's a romance-fueled fantasy book. And that's literally all I know about it, but I've heard really good things about it, and I think it won one of the Goodreads Choice Awards this year? I'm not sure, but I feel like it was either nominated and got close to winning or won. So I feel like this was a good choice. I don't know. Hopefully it was, and hopefully I'll end up loving this. So the next one I got is Daughter from the Dark by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko, and this book I actually read earlier this year. It came out in, I think, like February of this year. This is an author duo that I really love. I think the way they write books is just so beautiful, and it's like dark sort of fantasy. This one is not my favorite by them. My favorite by them is definitely Vita Nostra, but I still really enjoyed this one. It's about DJ Aspirin who finds this girl one night who says she's his daughter, but she's like not, like her story doesn't really add up, and then she's looking for her brother. It's kind of weird, but like in the best way possible that I feel like a lot of their books are like, even though I've only read 2 books by them. It's really interesting, and I wanted to have a physical copy of it because I have a physical copy of Vita Nostra, so now I have a little collection by these authors, and I'm really excited to have it. These next 2 I'm especially excited about because they're 2 of my favorite books of all time, but they're special illustrated editions, which just makes me super happy. And the first one is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, which is not my favorite by Robin Hobb. It's probably like my second to least favorite series by her. Second to least? Maybe third to least. I haven't decided yet, but I love all of her books. Like, I've read all of her books and I love all of her books. So even if it's not one of my favorite series by her, I'm still super excited to have an illustrated edition of her book. Like, super excited for this. It is absolutely gorgeous. So gorgeous. I love like the true hardcover where there's like no dust jacket. Just gorgeous. Haven't flipped through it much, but the illustrations so far are beautiful, and I'm really excited for this. I am planning to reread the first 2 books in the series, which include Royal Assassin, this month. I'm really excited for it, and I'm really happy to have this special edition. And the other special edition that I got that I'm really excited to have is A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. This is the 3rd book in these A Song of Ice and Fire series. Of course, this is a special illustrated edition also that literally just came out, and I'm super excited to have it. I don't want to get too many of these illustrations for you guys because the last time I did this, I accidentally gave away a spoiler like really early on, and they're like pretty big spoiler. So I haven't actually flipped through them yet, but I'm really excited for it. I have the first 2 in the special edition already, and I'm really excited to have the 3rd one. I'm also really happy that it's red. It's gorgeous. I love that it's red because the original one's green and I don't like green, so I'm happy to have a red Storm of Swords because this is one of my favorite books of all time. It's definitely my favorite in A Song of Ice and Fire, at least so far. We'll see. I might like the 6th or 7th book more. We don't know. When it comes out, then we can find out, but as of right now, it's A Storm of Swords, and I'm really happy to have this edition. Also, earlier this year, I reread the first 2 books, so the next time I finally continue on with my reread of this series, it will be A Storm of Swords, and I'm excited to have the illustrated edition to continue on that reread. So pretty early on, I got the Rhaeria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. So I decided to get this because it was part of my fantasy book series challenge, and I started the audiobook of it because I have the audiobooks from Audible as well. And as soon as I started it, I was just like, this is a series I'm going to like a lot because I really liked the writing and the narrating style, and I really enjoyed the characters. It just really worked for me. Like, I got super into it right away. So I just decided to get the physical books too because because I knew I was gonna like it. So far, I've only read Theft of Swords, which I think I ended up giving like 4.25 stars. So this series is actually 6 books in 3 volumes. So each physical volume is 2 books. So in the first one, Theft of Swords, which I've already read, I really loved the first one. Like the first one got me really into the story. Didn't like the second one as much, which is why I haven't continued on with the series yet, but I did really enjoy it still. It starts off with like a really good like kind of hook because we have these 2 guys who are really good friends who are accused of killing the king, but they didn't do it, so they had to find out who actually did do it, and then it's following a bunch of other characters. And as the story continues, you start seeing the more long game sort of things that are gonna happen in this series, which makes me really excited. This is definitely a series that I can see myself reading really fast. If it wasn't December and I didn't have so many other series that literally just had books come out that I've been in the middle of, then I would be 100% on top of the series. I'm super excited to get to it in the new year though. Now for some fantasy new releases, I got Call of the Bone Ships by RJ Barker. I haven't gotten to it yet. I know I've been talking about this book for a little while on my channel. I'm so excited for it. I will be getting to this very soon and I can't wait. First of all, I absolutely love this cover. It is just gorgeous. Just exactly what you want for a maritime fantasy book. And I love maritime fantasy. Maritime fantasy is like one of my favorite like subgenres of high fantasy. And I read the first book in this series last year. Really loved it. And ever since then, I've still been thinking about that first book and thinking that I'm excited to get to the next book. So like this was kind of a whim for me. Like I hadn't actually planned to get the next book. I thought like maybe I'll borrow it from my library. But when I saw that it was coming out, I wanted it so much. So I decided to get it and I'm really happy to have it. This series is set in an archipelago society in which they make ships out of the bones of ancient dragons. And it's just such an intricate world that I absolutely love. And I'm really excited to continue on with it. So next, of course, I ended up getting The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. I had this on pre-order like pretty much as soon as I finished The Dragon Republic. This is the 3rd book in the Poppy War series. You guys know I absolutely love the Poppy War series. Fantastic Asian-inspired grimdark fantasy series that I cannot wait to get to also. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I will be getting to it very soon. I'm currently on my reread of The Dragon Republic, which I'm about like, let's say halfway through it now. And once I finish that, this is the next book that I'm picking up and I cannot wait for it. Also, absolutely gorgeous. Look how gorgeous this book is. I actually really love the back. The back gives me just, I don't know, it's just the perfect like Asian inspired fantasy vibes and I'm really excited for it. And next on my new releases, of course, we have to talk about The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter, but I also purchased The Rage of Dragons because I didn't already own it, and since I was getting The Fires of Vengeance, I was like, it's kind of weird to get the second book when I really loved the first book and never got the first book. So I decided to get the first book. I don't plan on rereading Rage of Dragons quite yet. Maybe before the 3rd book comes out, I'll reread the first one because I remember it well enough that I don't think I have to for The Fires of Vengeance, and I'm really excited for it. I really loved the ending of Rage of Dragons specifically, and it made me really want to pick up Fires of Vengeance. So I'm really excited for that. I hope that it just picks up where this one left off, and I can't wait to get to it. For those of you who don't know, this is an African-inspired high fantasy following a character named Tao who has some really bad stuff happen to him at the very beginning, and he's trying to overcome that. And there's a lot of things that happen between then and when The Fires of Vengeance start, and I cannot wait to see what is going to happen in The Fires of Vengeance. Like really excited for this, and hopefully I'll end up loving this as much as I think I will. And lastly, I've shown this one on my channel a few times now, but I couldn't not include it in my book haul, and that's Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Of course, I'm super excited to have this. By the way, I'm really happy I got the hardcover. Even though the rest of my books are like the mass market paperback size, this book is just so gorgeous. Not only is the dust jacket absolutely gorgeous, the inside is just so gorgeous. The map on the inside of the dust jacket is gorgeous. Illustrations in the inside cover is just absolutely gorgeous. On the back cover as well. Oh, I just love it so much. You guys know I love it when there are illustrations in books, and the mass market paperback does not have those illustrations. At least it didn't have it in the first couple of them. I'm just so excited to have this. It's the 4th book in the Stormlight Archives, and I literally just finished Oathbringer, so I only have Dawnshard to read yet before I can get to this one, and I'm really excited for it. Definitely planning to get to this before the end of the year, which is like in 2 weeks, so very soon. So that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, because I would love to discuss with you guys. I post videos on Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so consider subscribing. And if you want to be notified as soon as I upload, you can click that little bell icon. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And I'll also check the links in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.